Ring, ring, ring. Hello, simps and little virgins.
Oh, you just couldn't help yourself, could you?
And welcome back to Krown's Magic Internet Money Cave.
Welcome back to the Krown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy Nothing Stochastics Friday. It's the last day of the week, and actually a few interesting things to be looking up as we do wrap up this week. Very, very important. Probably for the next week to come. I expect that today is going to more or less be maybe some more of the same, actually. Maybe even some more of the same. Anyways, other than that, I want to once again let you know that if you're interested, you can still get the Jewel Light for free for the first 30 days. Plus, you can also find an affiliate link to the decentralized exchange, Apex, in the link in the description below. It'll award you 5% off of your trading fees, and I expect that that may or may not be valuable to some people out there who are looking for new exchanges after the SEC comes after just about every major exchange in the US as of right now. All right, sweet. So let's just jump right into it, starting off with Dixie, actually. So you know that I'm bored as hell when I start to talk about Dixie, but in this case, there is one major interesting thing to be aware of as of right now. First and foremost, we do see a potential for another lower high being put in right here on the weekly after that rejection just shy of $1.05 or so. In this case, this is going to be accompanied by potential hidden bearish divergence coming in as soon as tonight's closure, as the weekly RSI has made higher highs above the high that we did see in February, although on price action the high is lower than the prior high. It's a long way of saying lower highs plus higher highs on the on the oscillator does equate to hidden bearish divergence. So basically any sort of a closure, especially below about 103.38 by end of day today. And yes, you will have that hidden bearish divergence in play. And probably over the next few weeks or a couple months, we do see a move back down around the 102 base or so. Somewhere between like 102, let's say, to maybe even as low as about 101 in like a quarter or so. Somewhere around there. Again, if indeed that does happen by end of day here. So of course, what would that essentially mean for risk on assets? Well, it doesn't always mean anything like super conclusive, at least in my experience. However, generally speaking, when the dollar strength is going up, risk assets go down, and when the dollar strength goes down, risk assets go up. So this would likely benefit risk on assets. However, again, it's more complicated than that. Whenever I see kind of people speaking about that on the Twitters or YouTubes or whatever it is, I think that it's a little bit too simplistic in that way, because again, when we're looking at Dixie, we are essentially looking at we're essentially looking at forex pairs. We're looking at the dollar strength relative to a basket of other fiat currencies, namely the euro actually. But there does seem to be some implications on the whole over the long period of time for risk assets in that inverse relationship. So again, that would be more or less benefiting maybe even Bitcoin and our other pet cryptocurrencies or magic internet monies, whatever the hell you want to call them. Anyways, on top of that, we do see that traditional markets continue to make new highs. NASDAQ making a new high in the week and actually getting another breakout as well. And of course, SPY doing the same thing here too, like really, really powerful from SPY, as you can see right here. Might pull back as the US market opens a little bit later, but ultimately I do expect that this one will continue into the next week or two to come. Probably looking for SPY somewhere around about 4,400. For NASDAQ, looking maybe somewhere around maybe even like 15. I wouldn't say like next week, but over the next couple of months perhaps. So ultimately, strong traditional markets or strong indices plus weaker dollar. Again, putting the puzzle piece together, is that going to benefit Bitcoin or not? It certainly would be more on the beneficial side, obviously, for the boo laws there. Anyways, going into Bitcoin, I do want to at the outset say there's really not a whole hell of a lot to update on. I do have a couple of new things, but first things first, I do want to just go over the the short-term time frame ranges represented by the 2-hour time frame. Same thing as yesterday, basically. Bottom side of the current range was and still is about 26,100 on a closing basis, and the top side of the current range at about $27,000, or just over 27 if you want to be super exact. Although I would say anything over 27 probably going to be good enough here as well. Other than that, we do see the median or the average coming in right around about 26.6, still same as yesterday. I was looking at that as a bit of a short-term balancing point. Didn't really get any fall through nor collapse from that, so it's kind of just irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. And really the big areas to be aware of are going to be, again, actually, in my opinion, just below $27,000 and just above $26,000. Closures above or below those regions likely to lead towards, significant continuations. Of course, to the upside, we're probably looking closer to $28,000 to the downside. Very likely a retest of this week's lows, and maybe then lower coming into next week. But again, based off of what we looked at for traditional markets, and Dixie over here, might be favoring the upside a little bit more within this equation. Anyways, moving on now, I did want to go through stochastic momentum in relationship to those ranges, and we can see starting off here on the daily, what do you know? Daily stochastic momentum will turn back up with any sort of a closure above 26,900. Not super helpful right now, but you can see that range resolution above, basically 26,900, $27,000 on a closing basis would not only be a range resolution, but momentum also turning in that favor as well. Until then, down, however. 12-hour time frame is also going to be upside or upside positioned as long as Bitcoin's above 26,200. 6-hour time frame is going to be also upside positioned as long as Bitcoin's above 26,400. 4-hour time frame is going to be downside position as long as Bitcoin's below 26,700, and hourly is going to be actually upside position as long as Bitcoin's above 26,500. Again, I'm not really seeing anything like super conclusive here. I'd really be going off of the range resolutions and then stochastic momentum to kind of follow. What it does suggest is that resolutions above or below those regions are likely to have some power to them. What also would be suggestive of major power actually is something new that I want to speak about here, actually in reference to a conversation that we had on today's Twitter space with Mr. Andrew Bray, actually, of the community. And what did he point out? He pointed out that weekly BBWP representing volatility is at, well, extreme lows. In fact, we are literally at 0 percentile right now. 0 fucking percentile, which really does not happen all that often for the weekly. Last time we saw this low was actually 3 years ago in July 2020, that is, on this tick right here. That was precipitating this short-term move of almost 40%, which inevitably, over time did obviously travel a lot more. But this was, in a very short amount of time, about the first month from that expansion, almost 40% to the upside, comes back down. Actually, this was when the SEC went after BitMEX, in fact, or I think maybe it was a CFTC, whatever it was. You get the idea. And, no new lows were had, and then boom, major upside. The time before that was this move over here, precipitating the major move down in 2018 when Bitcoin went from about 6,000 to 3,000, so nearly or about a 50% drop right there. Time before that was over here. Again, about 78% move to the upside on that first major move. Same thing over here, almost 79.5% move to the upside over about 28 days. Another one over here, about 30% move over the course of 21 days. And I think other than that, there is no other comparable volatility regime to what we're looking at right here. So in this case, can we get a bias on direction? I mean, we could use stochastic momentum, we could use other things, but ultimately it's going to come down to range resolutions. So the easiest way to be looking at it would be anywhere above last week's high at 28,450. Very likely to see that come to the upside. To the downside, basically anywhere below this week's low would probably do it for me. And at that point, the lowest percentage gain that we've seen in a relative short amount of time was about 30 to 40%. So, from here, if we're looking at that to the upside, 30%, that'd still say that $34,000 to $35,000 is on. To the downside, obviously that would put Bitcoin back around the current lows. In fact, so I do still think that the downside is a lot less likely to happen overall. However, I wouldn't be too averse to, a quick move just below $25,000. But ultimately, as of right now, I would say that, again, more sideways here is going to be interpreted as better for the Bulas than the Beras. And ultimately, if Bitcoin can just hold sideways here, without breaking below about $26,000 for another couple of weeks, inevitably, we probably do see that move come to the upside. So it's going to be a lot. I think it's going to be more waiting, honestly. But you can see sort of, some other things in the periphery of the markets, like we did speak about with Dixie, like we did speak about with the strength in the U.S. Major indices. And then a few other things that we looked at over here. And, for what it's worth right now, the weekly stochastic momentum is currently pivoted at 29,800. So that will actually be positioned to the downside rather heftily. But I actually don't have a relationship going on for these. So maybe I'll do that for tomorrow's video and see if there's a relationship that's been had in the past. It's really not a whole hell of a lot of data to be going off there, to be fair, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 prior iterations. But ultimately, Bitcoin likely looking at about a 30% move upon expansion, which I think is going to take some time from here, to be honest with you. And taking more time would be better for the BULAs, actually. Anyways, I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off. On this particular video, I appreciate massively the feedback that was had on regarding the thumbnails on the prior videos. It's actually really, really helpful. And I've kind of had like an own audit of myself after having a few important conversations with some people that I hold in very high regard and trust a lot. And it's like, yeah, I think that's a change that we should be making. Again, does it lead to less views or not? Maybe, maybe not. But ultimately, I want to be true to myself here, and I want to make sure that this is, as what's it called? As authentic as possible. Yes, that's what I'm looking for. My English vocabulary is not looking pretty damn good today, unfortunately, because my lack of sleep is interfering with my brain activity. So on that note, I'm going to be signing off. I want to be wishing you the best as always. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully tomorrow.